Hey guys, I thought today I would do a short little video about brushes because it's a very big investment in your watercolor practice, and you have to think about what you need and not spend a fortune like I have, but I do enjoy playing around, so hopefully all my playing around will help you determine what you need and what you don't need. The first thing we want to determine is our budget. Because I have bought so many brushes, I've probably spent a lot of money, and I will tell you that you will find that once you find a brush that works, you're going to stick with that brand. But you might try a few along the way, but don't get caught up in what everybody else is using, because if you're happy with what you've been using, continue to buy them or maybe upgrade within their brand line. So we're going to go through that. You have to think about your budget first of all. So I have a variety here of student to professional, but I don't have anything that's excessively expensive. I don't have any Kolinsky sables or anything like that. And that's fine too. I don't feel like an $80 to $100 brush is going to make that much of a difference in my art. Maybe in the future it would. If I could afford it, I would give it a shot. I do have some brushes that are in the $40 to $50 range. And I don't really like them any more or less than the ones that were $20. So think about your budget, and then second, think about the size of the painting that you're going to be working in, and the type of, the bigger the painting, the bigger the brushes are going to have to be. But if you want to do detail work, you're going to have to make sure you bring in some that can accommodate more fine lines, holding less water, and holding more pigment to get more detailed work at the end of your painting. So the most important thing that you can purchase, and you'll hear it is essential, is a round. So rounds are characterized by a round ferrule, a big body, and a point. Some types of brushes will hold point differently than others, and sometimes if you've been abusive to your brushes like I have, your point is going to be a struggle to come back. So that's why it's important to clean your brush and twirl it at the end of each painting session before you put your brushes back. So this is a very loose round. It's a large 14, but it's a Neptune, so it's a softer blend. It has both natural and synthetic fibers. So it doesn't get a real sharp point, but it's a great brush. It can hold a lot of water, and I can do a lot of textures and wash building. I do like the Princeton line the best. So I have so many. I have the Princeton Velvet Touch, which is a little softer, more blending. You'll see these don't have quite a strong point either. So these are good for just laying down washes. So rounds are essential, and you might want to try a lot. This is my only Rosemary and Company. At first I didn't like it, now I like it. It's a large brush. So this is a 14 Rosemary Company, this is a 14 in Princeton. So you really have to see them in person or a comparison chart when you're buying them online, because you could be surprised by what you get, because of 14 in one company is different than the other. When I first started doing watercolor, everybody used silver brush, and I felt like I had to have it. I don't love them. They're very soft. They're good for laying down blended colors when I do the pet portraits. But because I like to use coarse paper, I didn't realize that I was doing a lot of damage to the fine hairs. You can kind of bring them back with a quick hit of hot water. It's just after it comes off a boil, you can just get your point back in, but you can see that I've scruffed them up pretty good, and I didn't feel that they were worth the money, but people love them. You might love them too. So those are some rounds, and those are what I've been using. Here's even some smaller ones for more details, and even your detail brushes might be in the round section, like a 2 Velvet Touch. This one is beet. This is a Grumbacher. This is a beet scruffy one. But I keep them around because they add great texture, and I like to get some really nice fine lines. The next most important brush that you should have are your flats. And again, I have another variety, and some of these were actually just gifted or just found around. That's a mop. So a flat has a pinched ferrule, and all the hair should come to a nice flat board. What would you call that? And these are great for a variety. You can use these just like you use around. You can put washes down, you can do some great line work, but I think that they're the best for me for adding dry work and texture because it's a little more controlled in how I put the paint down. I'll demo that for you. So those are your two essential brushes, your rounds and your flats. You're going to hear a lot of other words thrown out, and you're going to just decide if you need to buy these or not. And I think if you're working large, that it's more important. And these are wash brushes. Sometimes they are, and that's not wash, that's a mop. Sometimes these are small, but they are also characterized by a crimped ferrule, but not as tight as a flat, still looser. And instead of it being more tight top, it has just like a mop, you know. Good for scrubbing down a lot of color, and it holds a lot of water, so you'd really have to be working on a large piece and be comfortable. So here are some that, you know, another Princeton I bought and I probably have used 4 times. I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll sell them. The Cotman one is good, but I never really use flat wash like this to put down my washes. I will show you what I use later. Then we get into specialty brushes. And I see a lot of people using the cat's tongue. I have a few. I bought this Princeton one. I don't love it, but you know, it's kind of a cool brush, does some neat effects. I'll show you that right now. And some people, when I first started, I would see them loading it with 2 colors and getting like a color separation. It looked pretty cool, and I thought I was going to need it for painting flowers, and I didn't really use it, but it does some cool shapes if you work with it. But like I said, I probably wouldn't buy one again. I'm happy with one. I'm not in love with it. I don't use it that often. So some people call this a pointed round. Some people call it a cat's tongue. Okay, and then because I do pet paintings, I have a couple of grainers, and those are like a flat, but you can see this separation in the bristles, so it can create some texture. I'll use it a little bit. I'm not going to say I use it religiously. I've seen it used for a lot of different things, but I like it to give little random fur on an animal. That's pretty much where I use it exclusively. I have seen many people use it to do grasses and such. And usually they're a synthetic brush, so they have some stiffness to them, so they don't hold water a long time, so you kind of have to keep loading them and working with them. But I do like having a couple of sizes of those in my toolbox. Let's see. Oh, here's another flat that I never use, but some people use again religiously, and that's an angled flat. You can see it's an angle. I only have one. I have a ton in my student classes, but this is the only one I have for my use. Now we talk about mops. Mops are great. They make beautiful swishes of color and washes. They do hold a ton of water. You can see the ferrule is a very big open mouth. The point comes to a point, but it's a very loose feel. And this one's wet, and you can see I tried to make a point out of it, and it doesn't make a strong point. It's very loose. It puts down a lot of color, picks up a lot of color, picks up a lot of water, and you can just paint a lot with it. There are a lot of artists that use these to paint flowers with, myself included. I like the way they move, but they are not easy for a beginner. So that's what I would say. Not easy for a beginner, but lovely, but very easy to make a lot of watery mistakes with them. All right, other things that I just had to have. Again, this is like an acrylic brush, but you can use it in watercolor, and it's just a stippler. I thought I was going to need this forever and ever. You just stipple. It's good to make the center of a sunflower or something like that. I'll use it once in a while, but it probably isn't worth the $8 I spent on it or whatever it was. Let's talk about brushes I cannot live without, and that is a dagger. Some people also, so these are all daggers. Some people have another name for it. I can't think of it right now, but dagger is the most used name. I love them. I have a variety. So I have a Neptune. This one's really soft and floppy, as you can see. So you see that it comes pinched and then it angles. Then I have another Princeton, but this one is a little bit more shaped, and a third. See, I do like my Princetons a little smaller, so it holds its shape as well. These make lovely organic shapes. You can do a lot with them. I like the randomness of it versus the control. You could do a lot of cool things with it. Beautiful line work. I cannot live without my daggers. They are always brought into a painting to finish off, to add lines that just have, I don't know, they're just very fulfilling. I really enjoy these. Personal opinion, I guess you would say. And then we can move on to the script liners or rigging brushes. Again, I need to have these, but not everyone would. I like that you can load your whole brush from bottom to top, and you can make a long continuous line using the brush and filling it up. I like the line work that it makes. It also, you can work it very floppy. The only thing is it doesn't hold a ton of water, so you have to really load your brush. And you can do a lot of random mark making. Using up these pinks and purples that I don't usually use too often. Really nice. I use it for a lot of swirly leaves, even fur textures. I really enjoy these. I have a variety. These long Cotmans that beat up, they've been around forever. These are not expensive. They're like $4 or $5. Then I have a few Princeton ones. But again, be careful of storage on these, because I have ruined a couple of these, because if you don't store them upright, they bend very easy. They're very long and delicate. I've never had any problems with shedding of the hairs on any of my Princetons, or a couple of my Cotmans, but not really any of my Princetons or anything like that. I find them to be the most useful brush out there. And for the price point, they have a variety of types and styles to work with. So let's go back to wash brush, flat wash. You'll see a lot of people putting down a lot, especially when they're working on a horizon or a sky and you want a nice clean flat wash. A nice broad flat brush like this works really well. I bought this one with a small handle, so I never find it, never use it, but it's a great brush. I need to be bringing it back out. Other people will paint with a lot of specialty brushes, Japanese or artist-inspired brushes. They look like this. They've got bamboo handles, and they have usually a hog's hair bristles. They're a big pile of hair, and they do shed a lot. They hold a ton of water. They will spread a lot of color around, but they can get a little sloppy and messy. So it's really good for people working large, who are working in very big washes and want to have some randomness added to their paintings. I got really inspired by a lot of artists using these, so they create a lot of nice, interesting backgrounds. And if you start to use them later, clean them really good and get them as a dry brush, they create some really good texture and randomness. If you don't put a lot of water, but if you put any water, it just goes. And again, these take a little getting used to. There are artists that I follow that use these, and I do like them for putting down some color in the beginning of a painting and maybe a little texture at the end, but they usually lend themselves to working on larger paintings. And then last but not least, are some calligraphy brushes. I bought some accidentally and I love them, and I probably have more than I need. I probably have 15 or 16 of these brushes. They're not expensive. They do shed a little bit, but they create great marks and beautiful flowers and leaves, but they do hold so much water, so you have to really know your strength of your pigment to water ratio, and you have to be okay with a little bit of messiness. For me, it's a great way to add randomness to the beginning of a painting, so I'm not so structured. At first, I can loosen up because the brush is loose. As you can see, it drops hair out of it. Just let it dry into your painting. Don't go into it and try to pick it up, because you'll either drag the color out like that, or if you stick your fingernail into it, you can easily tear your paper or give it a mark. So those are a lot of the different brushes I own. I'll show you a couple more before I close off. These are travel brushes. You'll see these from time to time. Don't love them. They're okay. I bought them to be convenient. I thought it was going to be more convenient to travel and carry them around, but I don't like the flimsiness of this top metal, and I don't like the clacketing in my hand, but that's a personal thing. They paint just fine. These were not expensive. These were like 3 for $12 on Amazon. They're not even a brand like they're expensive, so perhaps a more expensive brand would feel differently. But I don't find myself going to them when I travel. I'll just wrap up my brushes and bring them with me. When you look for brushes, make sure you check to see the length of the handle, because sometimes you'll get a brush this small. This is a regular size watercolor brush handle. And then sometimes you will get one like this. Whoops. I don't know what I'll be painting with this, but it's off on the side in case I decide to, or maybe I will sell it or give it away for someone who wants to paint like larger things. And last but not least, what I put in my watercolor kits is a water brush. Real simple. You open it up, you fill it with water, you load your brush, depending on how much water you want into your pigment, you squeeze a little, squeeze a lot, and it just moves the paint. It's great for painting on the go. It's good for crafters, and it's just a good way to get started. It's this really cheap nylon brush. I mean, I think they're like $1 or so, but you might have seen them and are curious. A lot of people who do watercolor pencils or watercolor markers will use this to smooth out the edges and to blend them. So I hope you enjoyed today's class about watercolor brushes, and that I was able to review a lot, tell you what you need, what you don't need maybe, but invest in the prices that are good for you. Start with less and don't jump and buy a bunch right away just because your favorite artist is using it. You will find that at the time, that's your favorite artist, you're using it, and you buy the brush, and it's just not working for you. So you have to find what works for you and start with less expensive and then build up. Or ask a friend if you know, like, hey, do you have that brush? Can I try it? Because you never know. You could spend money like $50 or $60 and, not love it. And that to me is a waste. I'd rather put that money towards better paper. Thanks again. Have a good day.